Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today I am going to be talking about something a little bit different. I tend to favor sci-fi and fantasy. These are my favorite genres, but today I want to share with all of you a handful of my all-time favorite literary fiction novels. So a couple things I'd like to mention before I really jump into these books is, first of all, my definition of literary fiction, which is not necessarily the same as yours. Literary fiction can be defined in quite a few different ways. The way I personally define it, first of all, there has to be a certain style of writing to it, on kind of a more complex, sometimes even an academic style of writing, a level of complexity that you don't find in the average, say, contemporary fiction novel. Secondly, the stories are usually more serious in tone. And third, I define literary fiction as being pretty thematically heavy or rich. Now, if you don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine. I would actually love to hear how you personally define literary fiction, so I hope that you will talk to me about it down in the comments below. The second thing that I wanted to say before I jump into this is that I have restricted this to more modern literary fiction novels. I have not included any of what I would call classics. I think the oldest novel that I have on this list, I think, was written maybe in the early 80s. So these are my favorite modern literary fiction novels. The final thing that I want to mention is my Paperback Empire T-shirt that I am wearing today. If you would like one for yourself, there is a link down in the video description box below to my Redbubble shop. Feel free to head over there and get yourself your own Paperback Empire T-shirt. So without further ado, here are my top 5 favorite literary fiction novels. The first novel on the list is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's the story of a man named Stevens. He is a butler, and it is set in the 1950s, and he's an English butler. I believe he's somewhere in his late 70s or early 80s, and he is about to set off across the English countryside to visit this maid that he worked with in years past, and which they kind of have this unrequited love story. And so he is not only reminiscing about his past as a butler at Darlington Hall, he is also sort of documenting his experience on this road trip across the English countryside. This story is not something that I would have ever thought that I would enjoy as much as I did. It's a pretty slow story. There's really no excitement about it to speak of, but the way that this novel is written, it was very engaging to me. I was really sort of fascinated by the life of this character, such an interesting life. There's also this sort of this sadness and this lovable quality to Stevens. You get a real taste of his humanity. It's a very nuanced novel. It's not, it's really, the beauty of it is in the writing style. I thought it was a beautiful novel. I don't think that this is for everyone. I can see, in fact, I never would have thought it was for me. I can see how a lot of people would feel like it is too slow for them, not particularly interesting, but I absolutely loved it. Next up, we have Running with Scissors by Augusten Burroughs. This is a fictionalized account of Burroughs' childhood and early adolescence, and it is essentially him telling the story of what it was like to live with a mother who, I can't remember if it was flat out stated, but a mother who seemed to suffer pretty severely from bipolar disorder. She basically handed him off to her psychiatrist and his family, and it is about Augusten Burroughs' experience living with this family, the psychiatrist and his children and everyone in that household. Then it is a pretty bizarre household. Really, it explores the themes of mental health and abandonment and family, and kind of a found family almost, although it is a very strange situation that he is in. It deals a lot with him, sort of his coming of age and finding his way in the world, and how him being put in this situation with this other family has permanently altered the course of his life. Because it was such an sort of out there experience for him to be in to begin with, the book is really infused with a fair amount of humor, kind of a dark humor, although it deals with these very heavy themes. So I don't know, it has this complexity to it between the humor and the seriousness of the situation, and, you know, this young man coping with a situation he did not ask for. I haven't at this point read anything else by Augustin Burroughs, although I definitely want to. The way he sort of relayed his experience was so clever and articulate, so I think I will hopefully one day pick up something else by him. If you are someone who really enjoys sort of fictionalized autobiographies, this is one I would definitely recommend that you pick up. The next book on my list is Life of Pi by Jan Martel. This is the story of a young man and his family. They are an Indian family. They own a zoo basically in India, and they are trying to immigrate to North America. And they are aboard a ship that ends up sinking, and the protagonist, Pi, ends up on a lifeboat with a number of animals, one of which is a 450-pound Bengal tiger. This deals a lot with sort of survival and also the relationship between man and beast. This book also has sort of some magical realism elements sprinkled into it. This book is dazzling, quite frankly, for me anyway. I was absolutely enchanted by this story. This book was also a Man Booker Prize winner, which is kind of a big deal. It's just, it was so enrapturing to me watching this character trying to survive aboard this lifeboat. I think he survives, supposedly he survives aboard this ship for over 200 days, just he and this tiger. You would think that it would get pretty monotonous, but for me it did not. I was beginning to end, I was hooked on this story. Also, I loved the writing style. I thought it had a really lovely flow to it, but it was also straightforward enough that it was easy to follow along and very easy to get pulled into. This was a great book. I mean, this has great ratings. It won the Man Booker Prize. It deserves all of it. This is a fantastic story. So the last two books on my list are probably tied for my two all-time favorites. One of my top two favorite literary fiction novels is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. This is the story of a young woman and her mother. Her mother is Ingrid, her name is Astrid, and her mother has been imprisoned. She's this brilliant poet, but she has been imprisoned for murder, and the story follows Astrid as she is placed in one foster home after another. This book is just absolutely beautiful. Like, the story is beautiful. The themes behind it are just perfectly executed. The writing style, it is just so lovely. The protagonist, Astrid, you know, she is being bounced around to all these different foster homes. And each is just vastly different than the one before. It's pretty harrowing. Some of the experiences that she has over the course of the story, they're pretty harrowing. I would say the main themes in this book include those of loyalty and family loyalty specifically, loneliness, and grief. On a side note, this book was actually adapted to the big screen. It is also a movie, and the movie is very, very good if you haven't seen it. They did a really great job adapting it, so I recommend the movie White Oleander as well as the novel. I did not realize this until after the fact, but looking back at all of these books, every single one of these books that are my favorites have been adapted into movies. The others, I think all the others, which I have seen the adaptation of each of these books, the rest are okay, but White Oleander, it is worth checking out, so I hope that you will. One of my favorite things about the writing of the way this is written, the writing style, Janet Fitch, she engages just the most beautiful metaphors, honestly, that I have probably ever read in any book. The writing style, it's almost ethereal. The main character, Astrid, she is so easy to love and engage with. Like, this book is just excellent, and if you have not read it and have any interest in literary fiction at all, I absolutely recommend that you pick this one up. The final book on my list, my other all-time favorite literary fiction novel, is The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. It is the story of a young couple who is just married in Calcutta, and them immigrating to the United States so that the man can get an engineering degree from MIT. After they have immigrated to the United States, they end up starting a family, having children, and this book really deals with the idea of immigration and cultural integration and assimilation. I think when I read it, I was maybe 19 years old. I think the reason this book was so impacting for me was my age and the time in my life. My perspective was starting to shift. You know, I was at the age where I was beginning to sort of, honestly, I don't know how else to put this, see outside of myself and starting to have this curiosity about other cultures and how, you know, people, how the other half lived, how people on the other side of the world live. And it was just a great period of growth for me. And I read this book during that time period, and it just absolutely opened my eyes to the immigration experience and immigration into the United States. I've never immigrated, and you cannot fully understand a thing like that, or really anything. It's hard to fully understand anything you have not personally experienced. So I definitely don't claim that, that I completely get it now. But this book gave me a good taste of what that might be like. Jhumpa Lahiri is a Pulitzer Prize winning author. She also wrote, I think she won a Pulitzer for her short story collection, The Interpreter of Maladies, which I have read. It was okay. I'm not the biggest short story person, but it was very well written. Like, she's a great writer. I favored the Namesake though. The story is it's beautiful. The writing style is just absolute perfection. And it is just a fascinating look into another culture and what it might be like to be thrust into a world that is not your own. I think I've read this book about 3 times, and the last time has been many years ago, and so I think I'll probably eventually pick this up again and read it again. This book is great. So I think that is it. Those are my top 5 all-time favorite literary fiction novels. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about these books. I would honestly really love to know what some of your favorite modern literary fiction novels are, so please talk to me about those in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like it and possibly subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.